Hey, this is Zach Glass, and this is my video journal number 5, I believe, for BPT 110 on net neutrality. And so it's been about a year exactly since the actual effects um, went into place. So there's hasn't been a whole lot um, said. There's definitely been a few people that feel that it's been a lot of small things that will end up being big things. But I'm going to go over the major changes that took place whenever they did repeal net neutrality, and it was upheld by one of the courts last October. So essentially, ISPs were reclassified as a Title I services, meaning that the FCC had little or no control over the ISPs and what they do. Meaning that if they wanted to, they could slow the speed of traffic for certain content, and they could even charge a premium fee for certain content. So this is ultimately hurts the consumers and benefits the ISPs, which that's the pretty much the consensus uh, from the whole entire country, other than the ISPs. Uh, Whenever that happened, I think the FCC received something like 20 million letters or notes they might call them leading up to this decision, and the vast majority of them, if not all of them, I think I've read were against the repeal of net neutrality. So, looking at the bright side, what's something good that has come from this? What are the pros of repealing net neutrality? And first thing that I've kind of thought of is I did some research into the times when there was no net neutrality, because it's kind of flipped back and forth over the years. Um, Google, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter all got their start and became viable during that time when there was no net neutrality. So the argument there is, let's unzip this, it's choking me. The argument there is that when there's no net neutrality rules, these internet companies flourish because they have less red tape to cut through, more people are willing to invest in them, so on and so forth. So that's one of the stronger arguments for repealing net neutrality, is because whenever there is a net neutrality laws in place, there's a very slow growth and low investment in internet-based companies. So I think that's a good argument. Those are all very profitable, very influential companies, and have led to some, a slew of advancements in the tech industry. All of those companies are responsible for various advancements in the tech and in our social lives too. Another pro that I found is it does save the U.S. taxpayers a ridiculous amount of money, because the FCC is no longer having to use the majority of their manpower to uphold these net neutrality laws. There's less nitpicking, less paperwork, less, you know, slapping people on the wrist left and right, keeping people in line. They can focus on other things, and it has saved the FCC. I don't have an exact amount, but lots of money and manpower, not having to worry about upholding the net neutrality laws. So I guess that's one. If you're more of a small government type of person, then that would definitely resonate with you. Another pro, my last pro that I'm going to talk about is there's less improvements and upgrades in broadband and the growth of broadband. There's less upgrades and investments and improvements in ISPs in general. Whenever the 2 to 3 years that they were discussing repealing net neutrality, leading up to it, when it was still being upheld, there was almost no growth, from what I could find, in these ISPs and their initiative to grow broadband across the country in smaller area or in more rural areas, and even improve it in urban areas. So there was just no improvements being made, no investments being put in place. So when there's no net neutrality laws, a lot more is invested in these things. So maybe that's one good thing that can come out of all of this, is that all of our broadband around here might get better over the next few years. So I would hope so. That's one thing that I'm really expecting to see. Faster download speeds, faster upload speeds, everything. I think it should improve. It's not great where I live, so if there's one good thing that can come from this, that is that we'll get a better product that we're paying for, because we are paying a premium for it, and hopefully those don't go up. I'm going to talk about that with the cons. So the first con, it's the main con that everybody's going to talk about, is net neutrality does preserve free speech on the internet. It keeps the distribution of content fair, and there's no censorship. There's no possibility for censorship, and that's scary to think about, because we've allowed monopolies to grow in all kinds of industries, and honestly, the broadband or the internet industry right now, there's not many companies that offer it. If they decide that they don't want, if they all come together and decide that they don't want certain things being distributed, or they can throttle this website and make this website faster, or charge more for you to look at this, that's borderline censorship, and it's scary. It's a little Orwellian. So I think that's the scariest thing. That's the biggest con. Another con is we're no longer protected from unfair charges. Frontier, which is a rural broadband provider, usually I think it's out west in like the big states in California. They're charging you fees for routers whether or not you've bought a router through them, and that's been taken to the FCC, and nothing's been done about it. The FCC is like, we can't do anything about it. They can charge you whatever they want to. That's pretty much what they told the people when they complained to the FCC. So that's scary, and you're already seeing the ramifications of that. So how long until these big companies like Spectrum and Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, all of them, they decide they can start doing that too? How long? And how big are they willing to go with it? Another con is it no longer promotes competition among these ISP companies. Like smaller companies, they have no shot. Competition between these companies is good for the consumer. And when there's no competition for more ISPs to be in the playing field, that just means it's going to hurt the consumer. We're going to pay more money. We're going to have less options. They can do what they want. I think in this area, you have Spectrum, and then you can go the AT&T route, which is, I've heard mixed things about it. So there's not many options already, and there's a potential that there's less options in the future. So as you can see, you can kind of tell by the way I've been talking about the pros and the cons. I disagree. I think net neutrality should have been upheld. Sorry, there was a bug in the way. I get why some people, primarily people in the ISP and tech industry, might want it to be repealed so they can grow and they can give us a better product. I just don't trust those people to have our best interest in mind while they're trying to do those things for us. They might, I'm getting long-winded here like I always do. I'm close to 10 minutes. I'm going to let you go. I want to leave with, there's a story about a fire department out in California that while they were fighting fires recently, their internet provider slowed their data. So they slowed their download speeds. And they took it to the FCC, and the FCC didn't even respond to their request to look into it. So this fire department is in the middle of saving people's lives and property, and they can't even get fair internet service at their fire department. and I think it was Verizon that was their provider, and Verizon told them, if you want to get the same level of internet as you were getting before, you need to pay double. And they just flat out said it. They backed it up. They didn't shy away from it. I think that's atrocious. And if there's ever an example for why repealing net neutrality was bad, it's because of that. I mean, that's just a horror story, and there's going to be more of those. I mean, these people are saving people's lives, and Verizon pretty much gave them the middle finger and told them, screw you, pay us if you want good internet. I just think that's ridiculous. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'll see you in class. Thank you.